on Zoom. I always have my camera turned off, but I forgot I had an HOA meeting last week that I unblocked the camera. And so when I started it, I just looked very derpy. So I just restarted my recording. Okay.
Why? We want to see that little bit.
Okay, so very sorry. I just played with my baby all weekend and I didn't grade your tests, but they should be graded by Wednesday. So let's take a look at your notes for today. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
All right. So what we are going to do today is we are going to spend 2 days looking at inverses. Okay. So the whole punch there is inverse. Okay, and for an inverse, you're going to use the notation f -1 of x. That means inverse. Okay, good morning. Okay, for each solution for f of x, you'll have an x comma y. If you're looking at the inverse, or f to the -1, it's going to be y comma x. Okay, so your original point xy is going to be reversed when you're doing the inverse. Okay, then we're going to come back and fill this in a second. Okay, so let's take a look at number 1. Okay, you should know how to graph this, but in case you forgot, okay, this is a y equals mx plus b. So I want you to begin at 2. That would be right here. And then remember that the m tells you how to move to get to the next point. So if it's a -1/4, I'm going to go down 1, run 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. What'd you say?
Why are we going that way? Why are we not going that way? The whole fraction.
So the negative means that I go down 1, but then I still run forward.
What would it be like?
If I had to run backwards, I would go up and backwards, which I'm about to actually do. So remember, we can go down and forward, or we can go up and backwards. So up 1, back 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Now, for your homework today, you're always going to have 5 points. So I only have 4. I'm going to do 1 more. Up 1, back 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my graph. Okay.
Does that include the point that you originally did?
That counts as one of the 4, correct?
So you said 4 or 5?
Sorry, 5. Okay, from there, I want you to take each of those 5 points and we're going to put them into our table for f. Okay, so I'm going to start back here with this one. Sorry, the axes aren't labeled for you, but this would be -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So -8, 4. Okay, next point, we're going to count out this one. I would have had to go back 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1, 2, 3, -4, 3. Next one is right here. What's this ordered pair? 0, 2, right? Because I didn't go to the side at all, and then I went up 2.
Wait, what are we?
We're just taking the x comma y from that point. Okay, this one right here, I went to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. That makes it 4, 1. And then my last point right here is going to be 8, 0. You can count it out if you want to. Okay, these points are for regular f. Now what we're going to do is we're going to graph f inverse. Remember what we put up here in our notes though, that if f is x comma y, the inverse, you're going to flip-flop it. So instead of xy, it'll be yx. Let's do it. Okay, are we ready? First one is -8, 4. What is that backwards? 8, 4, -8. And then I'm going to go graph that on my grid. So 4 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My next point was -4, 3. what will that be backwards? 3, -4. So then I'm gonna go over 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3, 4.
No numbers on the graph.
I know, I'm sorry, I should have picked one of the numbers. Okay, next one was 0, 2, what is that backwards? 2, 0, thank you, 2, 0 would be right here. Next one was 4, 1, now it's 1, 4. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then last one was 8, 0, now it's what? 0, 8. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, then connect your dots when you're ready. Okay, the blue one is F inverse. The red one is original F. Okay? Now, let's talk about a couple things. The first one is going to be the blank that we left up here at the top. So it says that there is a line of symmetry between the two graphs. It's going to be this diagonal line right here. So if I were to take my graph, my paper, and I were to fold it along that line, do you see how both sides match up right on top of each other?
Yeah.
Okay, that's called the line of symmetry. The equation for that line is y equals x. Okay, and that graph, that line should always cut your graph perfectly in half and create a line of symmetry. Okay, so let's write that in right here. Okay, and then I'm gonna put diagonal. Okay, good morning. Okay, so your diagonal line should form a line of symmetry. Okay, when you fold your graph, it should match up on both sides. Okay, then last little part of this, for a function, okay, your x's have to have only one y value, they cannot repeat. And your graph has to pass the vertical line test. Okay, the vertical line test. Now, for either one of these, here's how the vertical line test works, in case you forgot. Any line you draw through it can only touch once. So we're gonna do the red line first. Okay, remember, we're just doing red, pretend blue's not there. If I draw in my lines, is it ever gonna hit the red twice? No, then we're gonna say right here, is it a function? Yes. Because it passes the vertical line test. Now let's do blue, ready? If I draw in any vertical line, am I ever gonna slice through blue twice? No, that one is also a function. Okay, so I'm gonna put yes, passes vertical line test. Okay, we're gonna do 2 more of these, then I'm gonna have you do a little bit of your homework. So take a look at number 2. Do we remember what shape this will be? It is a V, very good, that's right. Which way does the -3 shift the graphs?
Oh, right.
To the right. What about the -5? Down, so I'm gonna go to the right, 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what does the 2 do in the front? Starts with the S. Okay, it is a stretch, but I was looking more for a slope, right? So if it's a 2, it's a 2 over 1. So go back to your dot, and you're gonna go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. You're creating a V shape. Ready? So I'm gonna go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Then I'll go back to the center, up 2 backwards 1 to make the V. Now, you can make as many points as you want, but I'm always gonna do 5 because that's how many you have to do for your home. Okay, then we're gonna take those 5 points and we're gonna put them into our chart. Okay. So let's start with this point right here. Can you tell me the coordinates x comma y for that point? What would that be? 1, -1 is correct. Okay, my next point is right here. 2, -3, thank you, that is correct. Okay, then my vertex point right here was 3, -5, because remember I went over 3 and down 5. Okay, my next point right here 4, -3. And then I need this last point right here. What would that be? Okay, 5, -1. Now, for my V, let's check and make sure it's a function. If I draw in my vertical lines, am I ever gonna slice it twice? No. So I'm gonna put, is it a function? Yes. Okay, now let's do the inverse. Remember, I find the inverse coordinates by just flip-flopping the original point. So if it was 1, -1, what will the inverse's point be? -1, 1. So now on your graph, go to -1, 1. Put your dot right there. My next point was 2, -3. What will my new point be? -3, 2. So I'm gonna go back 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. My next point was 3, -5. Now it's what? -5, 3. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Next point was 4, -3. Now it's -3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then last one was 5, -1. Now it's what? -1, 5. Very good. Thank you. Okay, then if I go to -1 and I go up 5, that'll be my last point. Now, when you connect your dots, you're gonna notice that it's still a V shape, but now how does it open? Instead of being a V up and down, now it's kind of like a V flip to the side. Okay, so next question, will my blue V be a function? No, because when I draw my line in, how many times is it gonna cut through the blue V? Twice. So this would then be a no, it fails the vertical line test. Okay, now one more thing, when you check your work, it should be symmetric around this line. So if I look at my shape, do you see how like both sides are kind of like matching each other? That you have like kind of like this, and then you have like a line and a line. Okay, so if that doesn't happen, then you know that somehow you messed your graph up. Okay, but the
Draw the line.
that's fine, that's fine. Okay, we're gonna do one more of those. Turn the page, please. And we're gonna do number 4 instead of number 3. Yes. Oh, thank you. The bottom part, let's go back and fill in those blanks. Sorry about that. What it says is that the y-intercept for x, for f, is going to become an x-intercept for the inverse. And the x-intercept for f is going to become a y-intercept. Okay, so essentially, because your x and y's are switching, if you originally cross, let's say, the x-axis at 2, then it'll be the y-axis at 2 when you flip your x and your y. Thank you. All right, go ahead and turn the page. Let's do number 4. Okay, I'd like you to take a look at equation number 4 and tell me what shape it's going to be. I'll give you your choices. Is it a line, a squiggle, a hook, a U, or a V? Number 4. What is number 4?
Something.
It is a U. Okay, now the negative in the front is going to make my U flip down, but we should know that if it's got a squared on it, that means it's going to be a U shape. How is it going to be shifted? To the right 5 and then up 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1. And then because I don't want to count that out later, I'm going to go ahead and just put 5, 1 in my chart. Okay, then remember that the shape of the U is usually up over 1, up 3 over 1. What will it be this time because of the negative? Down. So watch my U, then do yours. I'm going to go down 1 and then down 1, 2, 3. Then I'm gonna do the other side. Down 1, and then down 3. There's my U. Okay. Once I have my U, I'm gonna look for the other 4 points that I haven't gridded out yet. Okay, so here's 5, 1. What will this point be right next to it?
6.
6, 0. And on the other side, it would have been 4, 0. Okay, because these are my x-intercepts. It crosses at 4 and it crosses at 6. Okay, 2 more points. This would be 7, negative 3. And then this point would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 3, negative 3. Okay, remember that if those are the points for F, then F inverse will have the same 5 points, but backwards. So flip-flop those points for me, and then regraph your U. Instead of opening down, it should open to the side, just like the V did. So flip-flop those points. Negative 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, then I'm gonna graph my little thingy here. Okay, is your red a function? Yes or no? For my original one? Yes, what about my blue? No, very good. Okay, do you feel like you can do these with graphs? Okay. Do we feel like we could do maybe just a little bit more of the notes? Or do we? Because I feel like the top part, you're literally just picking the points and flip flopping them. So let's try to do just a little bit more and then we'll still take a break soon. Okay, so take a look at the next section. You can also find the equation for the inverse. And you did this in algebra 2. You might have forgotten. Okay, but all that you're gonna do is switch the x and the y. And then you're gonna reverse the side so that y is back on the left. And then you're gonna solve for y equals. Okay, remember that f of x and y are the exact same thing. So let me show you how this works. Okay, it shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, take a look at number 4. Step number 1. You're gonna switch the x and the y in the equation. Okay, so gentlemen, Christian. Okay, instead of, oh, not you, Christian. Okay, y equals is now x equals. 1/4 x is now 1/4 y plus 7. Step number 1, you're going to reverse the x and the y in the equation. Okay, step number 2, this is optional. I don't like having my y on the right side of the equals. So to kind of switch it, I'm going to take the equals x and I'm going to move it over to this side. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to do 1/4 y plus 7 equals x over here. Okay, technically though, that is optional. You can get y alone on whatever side you want. Okay, from there, I need to get rid of a plus 7. How do I do it? Minus 7. Whenever you subtract, make sure that you do it on both sides. So now I have a 1/4 y equals and x minus 7. Yes?
When is that word that's stuff?
This is left.
Arrow.
Okay, next step, I have a 1/4. That means divide by 4. How do I undo a divide by 4? Okay, times 4. And when you times by 4, you need to times this whole side by 4, which means that you need to include parentheses. Okay, then from there, a times 4 and a divide by 4 cross out. So you have y equals, what is 4 times x? What is 4 times minus 7? Negative 28. Very good job. Okay, so if this is the original, this would be the equation for the inverse.
How did we get rid of the one?
We times by 4. So a fourth means divide by 4. So to undo that, we times by 4 on both sides. Okay, take a look at number 5 right next to it. Step number 1, you're gonna switch the x and the y in the equation. So instead of y equals, it's gonna turn into an x equals. Instead of a 6x minus 10, it's a 6y minus 10. Okay, then, because I don't like my equals x on the left, I'm gonna move it over to be on the right. So it'll be equals x over here. How will I get rid of a minus 10 if I want the new y alone?
Plus 10.
Plus 10. So now my x has a plus 10 with it. 6y equals x plus 10. Okay, now I'm trying to get rid of a 6 in the front. This means times 6. How do I undo times 6? Divide by 6. But make sure when you divide by 6, you need to do this whole thing divided by 6. Not just the 10, the x needs to be included as well. So it'll be x plus 10 over 6. That would be your equation for your. Yeah, if you did x plus 10 over 6 equals y, that's the same thing. Okay? All right, now turn the page. We're just gonna go over some other types of equations. You've seen all of these before. We'll maybe do like one of each type. So let's start with number 6. Okay, first thing I want you to do is switch the x and the y. So instead of y equals, now it's x equals 3y plus 1 cubed plus 9. Okay, then, because I want to be a little bit lazy and I don't want to have to rewrite all this again, I'm just gonna scribble out the x and put it on this side. Okay, because it's the same thing. So I'm gonna get rid of the x equals and make it an equals x. Okay, now, the reason we have to run through a couple of these is to make sure that you remember the order for solving. What will I get rid of first? Not the parentheses. Take another guess. The 19 is going to be your next guy. It's a plus 19. How do I get rid of it? Okay, minus 19. So now I have equals x minus 19. So I have 3y plus 1 cubed. Okay. Take a look at that. What do you guess I'm going to get rid of next? The 3 is correct. Now, we're getting rid of the big 3 in the front. So if it's a times 3 in the front, how do I undo that? Very good. And remember, when you divide by 3, it's everybody divide by 3. So I have y plus 1 cubed equals. Now, you have two choices the way this is written. You can leave it as a fraction, okay, or this is a divide by 3. That's the same as a 1/3. Okay, but for your homework, it does not matter which way you do it. If you like it as a big fraction, that's correct. But if you want to do a 1/3 in the front, that's fine too. So these are the same. I don't care which one you do, you should recognize both.
Wait, so I was looking at the bottom. Why? Oh, yeah.
So a 3 on the bottom means divide by 3, just like a 1/3 in the front means divide by 3. Okay, next thing I'm gonna get rid of, you cannot touch the plus 1 with those parentheses. We have to get rid of the cubed. How do I undo a squared? I take the square root. To get rid of a cube, I take the cubic root. Okay, and a cubic root is just gonna be a regular square root symbol, but you're gonna put a little 3 in the elbow like that. So big square root symbol with a little 3 in the elbow. And then anytime that you do a cubic root on a cubed or a square root on a squared, okay, they're gonna cross each other out. So now all I have left is a y plus 1. And how am I gonna get rid of that y plus 1? Very good.
Wait, so can we do the cube root over the x minus 19?
You'd have to put it over the whole fraction though and keep it like this. Okay, then my plus 1, just to be a little bit lazy, I'm just gonna minus it across to the other side and scribble it out. So now it's like this. Now, quick things for you to note. You cannot take away the 1 from the 19. The reason why is your 19 is locked up inside this root. So you can't take a regular -1 and touch it if it's inside the square root, okay?
What did we do with the +1? Put it-
So the +1, we subtracted 1 on both sides.
Oh,
So now it's a -1 on the other side. Okay? All right, next one we're gonna do is, let's do number 7. Step number 1, switch your X and your Y for me. So instead of a Y equals, it's an X equals 1/2, 1/2, not there. Okay, cubic root, X minus 5, oops, now that's a Y minus 5, plus 14. But then I want to be kind of lazy. I don't want to rewrite the whole thing. So I'm going to eliminate the X equals and make it an equals X. Okay, and then guys, this is a Y. Sorry, it looks so ugly. Okay, what do you guess I should get rid of first? You might be wrong, you might be right. What do we guess? 14 is correct. It's a plus 14. How do I undo a plus 14? Minus the 14. So now we have 1/2 cubic root, because it has a little elbow, Y minus 5 equals X minus 14. Okay, next thing I notice is I have a 1/2. That means divide by 2. How do I undo a divide by 2? Multiply by 2. And when you times by 2, you need to group this and times by 2 on the outside. Because it's not just the X times 2 or just the 14, it's both of them. What happens when you have the 2 and the half? Cancel out, because one of them's a times 2, the other's a divide by 2. So now I have cubic root, Y minus 5 equals. Now you have a choice here. If you want to times the 2 in, you can, but I'm not going to because I don't have to. I'm just going to leave it. This is a 2 times X minus 14. Leave it just like that.
But if you want to.
If you want to, you can, correct. Next step, can I get rid of the minus 5? No, it's locked up in the square root. We got to get rid of it. How do I undo a cubic root? Cube both sides. So to get rid of the little 3 in the elbow, you're gonna cube and cube. And what happens when I cube a cubic root? They cross out. And now I just have Y minus 5 equals. Now, it's up to you. If you hate this, which kind of looking at it, extra parentheses, maybe I don't like that so much. Okay, I could do 2 times X is what?
2x.
2X, and then 2 times 14 is
-28.
-28. But if you don't mind the parentheses in a parentheses, that's fine. Okay, it's not wrong if you leave it the way that it was. Okay, then I have a minus 5. How do I undo that? Plus 5. Can I add it to the 28? No. Okay. So that would be my final answer right there. 2x minus 28 cubed plus 5. Now, I'm going to rewrite that the other way just so you can see it for both for your homework.
Does it matter which way we put the Y on that yet?
It does not.
For the homework?
It does not, because it'll say Y equals and you're just typing your answer into the
So
box.
can we do equal? Oh, okay.
Okay, now I do want to point out a pattern to you. Okay, before we keep going for you to check your work. My original equation had a plus 14 on the outside, yeah? Okay, what did the answer end up having? A minus 14 where? On the inside. Okay, I originally had a minus 5 on the inside. What did I end up with in my answer? Plus 5 on the outside. Okay, I originally had a 1/2, that's a divide by 2 on the outside. It turned into times by 2 on the inside. So you should be able to tell that pattern should hold true. That if you have a number on the outside, you should have the opposite on the inside, okay? Last one we're gonna do together is gonna be number 10. Or actually, maybe 9 instead.
Yeah, why?
Okay, let's take a look at number 9. Switch the X and the Y. I did, but then I changed my mind. Okay, so it's x equals 7th root y minus 5. Step number 1, swap the letters. Okay, optional step number 2, I don't like x equals, so I'm gonna make it equals x. What do I get rid of first, the 7 or the 5? 7. Now remember, if it was a cubic root, I'd cube both sides. What if it's a 7th root? 7 both sides. Okay, so I'm gonna put a 7 up top here and a 7 up top here. Now, if the x had another number over there with it, you'd have to group it and then 7, right? But since the x is alone, I don't have anything to group it with, so I'm not gonna put the parentheses. You can, sure. Okay, so from there, my 7th root, 7th power cross out. I just have a y minus 5 equals x to the 7. Okay, then from there, how do I get rid of the minus 5? Plus 5. Okay, then I want you to look for your pattern to make sure that when you're checking your word, okay, a minus 5 on the inside became a plus 5 on the outside. A 7th root became a 7th power. Do we get the idea? Okay, go ahead and pull out your Chromebooks, please. Okay, you should be able to see your homework now. Yes?
Did all the rest of my homework.
Okay.
Which was regrettable, because now I have sleep deprivation.
But at least you're done, right?
Dang. I love it enough for my mother, so.
That's okay. What do you need, honey? Do you need a charger?
I just need
There's one right here. You can just pull this guy out. Yes. Oh, okay. Alright, let's open this up. There you go. Uh-huh.
I was gonna ask, so for this, how would we decide like how to find this?
So since it's a line, you would just start at 2 and then that's the rise over run. But on your homework, the graph's already there for you.
Oh.
Okay, your first question. Okay, look on the board. You can either write the points down and then reverse them, or you can do it in your head. Okay, I'm just gonna do it on the board and write it down backwards. So looking at my point or my graph, I'm gonna pick 5 pretty points. Okay, I'm gonna pick this one, these 2, and then it looks like these are both pretty, so I'll do this one and this one. Okay, as long as you're picking pretty points though, okay, don't pick one that's like in the middle, then you should be fine, because you want to pick whole numbers so that you can graph them. So let's start with this point right here. What is the coordinates? Okay, look at the board for this point right here. What is the x comma y for that?
Wait, which question are we on? 7.
First question.
Very.
Okay, -8, 0. Thank you. What is that backwards? So I'm gonna go to 0, -8. So that from -8, 0. Now it's 0, -8. Okay, and then you're gonna click here. You should have a dot.
Dot.
My next pretty point is 0, -2. What would that be backwards? Okay, then you're gonna click here. Okay, my next pretty point is this one. What is that ordered pair originally?
0, -4.
1, -3.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the
Yeah,
other.
you're on the next one, that's okay. So then that backwards would be -3, 1. Okay, then Oliver already told me this point, he was correct, it was 0, -4, what is that backwards? -4, 0, that would be right here. And then -3, 1. Okay, we need one more point, and I picked this one. That's gonna be -8, -6. When I reverse that, it's -6, -8, which would be here.
Or it creates a line for you.
And it creates the graph for you once you do all 5. So now look, your graph should look like that. Okay?
It's not straight line. It's not perfect.
Oh, I know, I made it ugly, sorry. Okay, then tilt your head sideways. Does it look like, do you see like the little heart? That the diagonal cuts it in half? Okay, if that doesn't happen, you messed up. Got it?
Sure.
Yeah. So this one should already be on your screen. You're graphing these 5 points and it'll connect the dots for you if you did it correctly.
Really 5.
Huh?
Really?
Okay, now, before I take this off my screen, I want to just tell you which ones you should not do right now, and then I'll put it back up. Don't do any of the quadratics. Okay, stop when you get to quadratics. We need to finish the notes at that point, okay? Let me try to line this back up. Yes. Okay, well, I can't line it back up. Now it looks ugly. But I'll just click it. How about that? So it'd be 0, -8 is here. -2 is here, there, and then there. So it should look like that. Okay, you want a scratch paper? Uh-huh. And once you click all 5, then it should connect it for you and submit. Yeah.
Magical line.
Paper, would anyone else like paper?
Remaining data point.
Make sure it's all pretty points that you pick. Yes. Damien, did you already get this question? Can I take it off? Okay. It's this one, Pasquale.
Okay, that was.
Okay. Do any of you ladies need something? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Your graph looks weird. Okay, let me come right back to you. Do any of y'all need paper? Reset, okay. Y'all need paper over here? Yeah. Anybody else? Y'all need any paper? You guys need any paper over here? What do you say? I think you could read. Give me the other. Rowan, was I resetting you? Did you need a reset? Who needed a reset? Someone.
Got one that's like 2/2, but it's the same as the one.
That's okay, put it in the same spot. If
Okay.
it's a point that when it's backwards.
Because I thought you said they shouldn't share the same x-axis.
That's like, that's if you're trying to see if it's a function. So just don't worry about that.
Okay.
Okay. It's fine? Okay. Make sure you stop at quadratics. Plus, while they, let's get
Yeah.
Yes. So that is negative 1.5 and you're 5. It's always gonna give you an explanation, you can just skip it if you don't. Stop it, Marcia. Write it down. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
What? Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Will you just take the pass hanging on the board?
Oh, no, these are the things really good. Yeah, these are the things, never mind. Wait, let me help.
Okay.
Oh, cubic root is under, do function. See it? Y'all, if you need the cubic root button, look in the math keyboard under function. Okay, yes. Alright, so let's find 5 pretty points. So let's start on this end. So put your cursor on the first pretty point. Okay, that's fine. So that's 1, 0. What is that backwards? So instead of putting your dot there, unclick it and put it at 0, 1. Okay, find another pretty point, Trace, so you get on. That's 4, negative 1. What would that be backwards? Negative 1 up 4. Yep. Okay, find another pretty point. Right there. Okay, what would that be backwards? There we go. Okay, now, you kind of ran out of either this way. So, no, don't do that. If it's originally a line, your answer is the line as well. So now let's try to find some pretty points back this way. You started there. There's 1, negative 2, 1. What would that be backwards? 1, negative 2. Okay, keep going. 1 more. Then you just need 5. Okay, then it'd be 2, negative 5. Yep. There you go. And now see how it's like a B and a B, and the line cuts it right through the middle, then you know you did it right. Are we doing okay? Amy, huh? Chris, you okay? Okay, so this is your very back page. We're just gonna finish the notes real quick, please. All right, we ready? Okay, take a look at this question. This is the top of the last page. We're gonna do our graph first. So if it's x square rooted minus 1 plus 3, this is gonna be a hook. Which way do I move it with a minus 1 under the square root? To the right one and then up
Hold on, wait, you're going too quick.
3, okay?
So whatever you turn.
So we are on the last page of your notes. We went to the right one and then up 3,
Okay.
okay? Then from there, this is a hook. So we know that we're gonna go up over 1, up over 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's what your graph should look like. Okay. Once you have your hook graphed, we're gonna find the inverse and make sure that they're reflections of each other across the diagonal like they're supposed to be. So if my equation is y equals, I'm just gonna rewrite it over here. Square root x minus 1 plus 3. Remember that to find the inverse, I'm gonna switch the x and the y as my first step. So instead of a root x minus 1, now it's a y minus 1. And then instead of a y equals in the front, I'm gonna make it an equals x in the back. From here, we're trying to get that new y by itself. What can I get rid of first? The 3, how do I get rid of a plus 3? Okay, minus 3, minus 3. So I have the square root of y minus 1 equals x minus 3. Okay, next step. I want to get rid of a square root. How do I get rid of a square root? Square both sides. And when I square, remember, I'm going to group, square on the outside, group, square on the outside. Okay, then from there, these guys cross out. I have y minus 1 equals x minus 3 squared. And how do I get rid of the minus 1? Plus 1 to the back. Now, here's where the problem comes up. So I have y equals x minus 3 squared plus 1. Okay, I go to graph this. Which way do I move if it's a minus 3? Okay, to the right 3 and then up 1. So that would be here. Okay, then very lightly, I want you to put your dots in. If this is a squared, we know that it's a U shape, right? So I'm going to go over up 1, over up 3. And then over up 1, over up 3. And what you're going to notice is that my graphs don't match each other. Okay, that's a problem. Here's why. My original graph was just half of a U, right? It was a hook. And now I'm getting a full U that they're not going to end up being matches with each other. So what I want you to do is when you connect your U, you're only going to connect the right side of the U. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. Start at your dot right here in the middle. You're only going to do the right side. Okay, and when you do that, draw in your diagonal, and you should notice that you're going to end up still with a graph that matches on both sides. Because on this side, you have like this little thing, right? And then on the other side, you end up with this thing that they still match each other. Okay? So when it's originally a square root, when you inverse it, you can only pick 1/2 of the parabola. Now let me tell you which one is which. If you started off with a positive square root, you're gonna pick the right side of the parabola, which is gonna be for x's greater than or equal to 3. So if you'll scribble this down right here, it says to use this symbol. Okay? Versus if you have a negative in front of your square root, you're gonna use the left side of the parabola, which is a less than or equal to. Okay, Violet, what was your question, honey?
What if the points of them line up? I don't think I'm sure what you mean.
They do end up matching it, but the problem is that if I draw in the other half of the U, then when I flip it, it's like I have like a U on one side and just a hook on the other that they don't match.
Wait, pick, the green one, where's the Q?
So the U would have been here,
Okay.
but I only took the right side of the U. Okay, now let's look at the one right below it. Okay, do you see how it has a negative? So I would only pick the left side of the U when I get it. So let's go ahead and do it for number 12. Okay, so let's actually, with this one having the half, let's pick a different one, but I'm gonna pick a left side. Let's go to the back side. Let's do number 7.
What back?
This one right here.
Wait, you can't hear which question it is. Which page? You said the last page.
So we're on the last 2 pages, but this one's back 1 page. Look at number 7. Okay. All right, so first thing this time, we're starting with the parabola. So I have a -2, which way do I go? To the right and then down, so right 2, down 1. Okay, now this one has a 2 in the front. Remember, that stretches your parabola. So instead of my dots going at 1 and then 3, I'm gonna double those, that my dots would go 2 and then 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't connect your dots though, just put them on your graph. So 2 and then 6.
Wait, do we go over 2 or?
You
just
go over 1, but you're going up 2 and then up 6.
Why are we doing this? Oh, it's because it's square, right?
Yep. Okay, now it's gonna tell you which side of the graph you're gonna connect. Look right here. I only want x's that are where? What does that say? Read it. Less than 2, right? So that means I'm gonna start at 2 and I'm only gonna connect the dots which way? To the left or the right. If it's a less than, to the left only. So I'm only gonna do that side of the U, even though there is more graph. If it says x is less than, I'm only gonna use the left branch, okay, right here. Now let's find the inverse, ready? I'm gonna take my equation, everywhere I see a x, I'm gonna change it to a y. So now it's a 2y minus 2 squared. And then instead of a y equals in the front, I'm gonna make it an equals x in the back. Okay, we're ready to solve. How do I get rid of a -1? +1. So now my x has a +1 with it. Okay, next question, how do I get rid of a ×2 in the front? What's the opposite of ×2? Divide by 2, or I can just use a half. That's what I'm gonna do this time. So I'm gonna just put a half in there. Because a ×2 and a divide by 2 or a half cross out. Okay, next, I need to get rid of the little squared. How do I do that? How do I get rid of a squared? Take that.
Square root it.
Square root. Now, when you square root, remember what we did in our notes the last couple weeks. When you square root, remember how it's a plus or minus? So now you're gonna pick which side of the plus or minus you want based on which side of the parabola you want. I originally had a left side, so that's gonna correspond with the negative in front of the square root. So you're gonna have y minus 2 equals, between the plus and the minus, I'm gonna choose the minus only. Okay, because it's a left side of the parabola. Versus if we had originally had the right side, we would keep a plus. Okay, then from there, how do I get rid of my -2? Plus it to the back, so it'd be y equals the square root of 1/2 x plus 1 plus 2. Okay. Once you have that, let's sketch our graph and make sure that the diagonal perfectly cuts your graph in half. So I'm gonna go to the left one and then up 2. And then from there, I have, oops, I picked the wrong one. What did I say I picked here? A
Right.
negative, and then I accidentally wrote a positive. So switch that to a negative. My bad. Okay, then if you remember, normally your square root does a hook like this, right? But if it's got a negative in front, which way is it gonna hook? Instead of going up, it's gonna go down. So watch, I'm gonna go down over 2, right? Down over 6, and your graph is gonna end up perfectly crisscrossing. Just kind of sketch it. It doesn't have to look perfect. Okay, and then if I draw my diagonal in,
Where do we get those points from?
so remember how it's a hook, but it's just upside down?
Yeah,
So I went down over 2, because it's got a stretch on it,
down over 2.
from your first stop here. So remember, if it's a +1, I go to the left one and then up 2. That's where I got this from.
From the origin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go down over 2. And then down over 6. And then your graph should line up correctly. Okay, so I wanna do one of them with you together, so will you go into the quadratics? The first question on your homework. You need scratch paper, Gabby? Okay, go ahead and solve the first of the quadratics, and then we'll do it. On the computer. Anybody else need paper? In your phone in your yonder pouch?
Yeah.
Then how could you do it?
How could I do it?
Okay, so we should all have the same for the first quadratic.
Okay. All right, real quick, here we go. Okay, on your paper, I want you to write down the equation.
Okay, but you're gonna put the y is gonna replace where the x was, the x is gonna replace where the y was.
When are we on?
This is the first quadratic. So it's 1/3. Instead of an x plus 2, I'm gonna put a y plus 2. And then equals to x, just like that. Okay, what's the first thing that I would have to get rid of? Okay, if it's a 1/3, that's a divide by 3. The opposite of that is to times by 3, right? So I have this so far. The 3rd and the 3 cross out. I have y plus 2 squared equals 3x. From there, how do I get rid of a squared? I take the square root. And when I square root, it's a plus or minus. Okay, just write both for now. These are gonna cross out. I have y plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 3x.
We get the 3x.
We got rid of the 1/3 as a divide by 3, so we times by 3. Okay, what's the last step with the plus 2? We have to minus the 2 across, which means that I have y equals plus or minus the square root of 3x minus 2. Now, one thing that is important here, you minus the 2 after the square root was already there, so the 2 should not be on the inside. Okay, from here, if your x is a greater than, you're gonna pick the plus. If your x is a less than, you're gonna pick the minus. So looking at your question right here, what sign did they put here? And if it's a greater than, then I choose which of these guys? The plus. Now, do you have to type the plus? No. But if it was a minus, you'd have to type a minus. So in your answer, you're gonna put square root. If you want a shortcut, do SQRT and it'll just pop up. SQRT. Then I want a 3x on the inside and I want a -2 on the outside. Okay, but if your x was a less than, you would put a negative on the outside. What? Is it wrong? Yeah, mine was right. Is yours really wrong? Let me see how you typed it. Oh, it should be root 3x and then -2.